So Desktop Bodybuilding has been blowing up, I'd say, in about, 6 to 8 months with Xavier Wills.
Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on your show. I've seen a few of your episodes and whatnot. You got some good guests and all
Thanks,
that
I
sort of
appreciate
stuff.
it, man. Yeah.
How's it all been going for you?
It's been going. I've had. I started about 1.5 years ago. So at first I was just doing my own thing, and then I was like, you know what? Nobody knows me, so I turned it into an interview show instead of. Ever since I turned it into an interview show, it's been like a very, very slow rise. It's going up, but very, very slowly. But every day I get more and more subscribers. But it's just like chipping away. But we're here to talk about you because you're my guest tonight. So Xavier Wills. Oh yeah, of course. Are you kidding, man? I appreciate you doing this because it's 6 p.m. over here in the U.S. in Jersey, and by you it is what, 7 a.m.
Yeah, 7 a.m. called by 7, something like that now. Yeah.
In Australia. All right. So you have desktop bodybuilding, and I would say in about the last 6 to 8 months it's been blowing up. So how did you start it, and why did you start it? And tell us how it started blowing up, because you have a massive amount of followers now.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. So it started. My whole bodybuilding media side of things started back when I basically had my own website that I launched, and I thought, okay, I want to do a sort of bodybuilding media site, and I was selling supplements as well, and I sort of integrated the websites together a little bit. And I was working another job at the same time as well, so I was sort of just, working a lot for a sort of young guy. I was only about 20 years old, I think, at the time, maybe 20, 21. And yes, I was putting everything into that. So on weekends, I would, there'd be contests on, and I was doing the written articles and stuff at that point. I was doing, my review of the contests, and my articles, for whatever reason, got a decent amount of views, but I never knew the people that were actually viewing my articles. I'd get several thousand views, and I'm like, this is cool. But I could never really, I couldn't put I didn't know how impactful that might have been, you know what I mean? Because I'm like, oh, okay, 3,000 views. Are people actually reading it? Are they not reading it? Or 5,000 views? And even some videos that I put up eventually when I sort of launched into doing RX Muscle Australia, which I'll touch on, I never could conceptualize it because I was only doing X amount of articles or X amount of videos because I was still working at the time. So I sort of started there, and then basically I was a big fan of RX Muscle back then, and that's when Aaron Singerman was on there. And yeah. So Aaron
huge
Singerman
fan.
was the editor-in-chief there. Dave Palumbo, always been a big fan of him back from MD days. Just before he left MD, I sort of became aware of him and John Romano. So I basically sort of tried to sort out with a sponsor to get Aaron and Dave to come out to Australia to cover the Arnold Classic Australia. Actually, I think it was before it was the Arnold Classic Australia. I think it was the Australian Pro, and then we had a expo attached to it called FitX. And so I got, I believe it was Aaron to come out. I think it was Aaron and Dave to come out to Australia. And Dave did some seminars around Australia, and I sort of helped set that up a little bit. So that was a huge deal for me. That was absolutely massive. Actually, I think it did just start with Aaron coming out, actually. And then the next year, Dave came out. So that was huge for me. That was like a big deal because I was a huge fan, and then I was getting to do the media side of things with RX Muscle. So I was like, this is huge. Aaron went back to America, and he said to Dave Palumbo, he said, look, Australia has a big following of bodybuilding. We should look at doing something there. Like maybe we can bring Xavier on to RX Muscle Australia. If he finds a sponsor to pay X amount, then he can run the thing. And then any other sponsors, I get the income from that. So I sort of started RX Muscle Australia. I ran that for a few years, had a few different podcasts on there. But I felt like because a lot of my stuff was Australian focused, I was focusing, I had an Australian bodybuilding podcast where we cover international, but we cover Australian stuff. So I sort of limited my audience a bit. So I was getting, a couple of thousand views per episode, but considering I was being hosted on RX Muscle, it wasn't that huge. You know what I mean? Considering that, and it was capped there. It was just, I could tell, I might get a few more viewers, but it was really capped because it was Australian focused. So I ran that for a fair while. I eventually started working for a supplement company, and then I was still doing my bodybuilding sort of podcasts and stuff through our supplement company. They sort of brought me on as a media sort of guy, and I did a bit of tech stuff as well, and I sort of did a bit of everything. And then that sort of ended. They moved their operations to the US, and obviously financially it's a lot better to hire people in the US rather than pay like the Australian wages and stuff, which are a lot higher in general. So that sort of ended. I moved into personal training, and then from there I thought, I started actually a sports betting business, because sports betting in Australia is fully legal. And I know in America it's sort of becoming a bit more legal, but we've got what do we call them, like TABs, which are basically like betting agencies sort of in every suburb in Australia. You can go down and put bets on sports and horses and all that sort of stuff. So I started basically consulting sort of betting business. And then on the side of that, I had someone working for me. And then on the side, I was like, I sort of want to do, I saw what, I'm trying to think of his name, Louis Marco was doing. I was like, this dude literally records his screen. These videos would be so easy for him to put out. He's getting huge amounts of views. I don't know how much money he's making, but I'm assuming he's doing okay for YouTube revenue and whatnot.
He was doing great for a little while. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I thought I could do that. Like, I could do that pretty easily. So I thought I'm going to call it Desktop Bodybuilding, because I'm literally going to record my desktop and talk about bodybuilding. And that's sort of how it started. And my videos were very easy then. And then me being a perfectionist, I wanted to make the videos better. So I was like, okay, well, I'm seeing what Nick Strength and Power is doing, how he's putting, photos on the screen and how they're moving and stuff like that. I'm like, well, I sort of like that aspect of it. It gives a bit more stimulation to what you're actually seeing. So I was like, okay, well, I can incorporate that side of things and then put my own little spin on it and still do interviews and stuff as well, to I suppose have a point of difference. And I'm like, well, I'm going to put my face on the screen. So I'm sort of branding myself. So if I want to, I suppose, either starting on a business or starting another podcast where it's got my face on there a lot of the time, people will recognize me. They'll see me and go, okay, that's Xavier from Desktop Bodybuilding, rather than, people never seeing my face and then going, I start something else and I go, who's this guy? So I wanted to have a few points of difference. I wanted my content to be a little bit different to what's out there already. And I think I've been able to do that to a certain extent. I've still got a lot more lofty goals compared to what I've done so far. But it's really cool. I'm getting a lot of really good support. I've got a lot of good support from big names, obviously yourself as well, who's reached out to me for this interview.
I'm not a big name.
No, but you know what I mean. Like, it's you're doing, I suppose, what I'm like. That's why I'm like, straight away I said yes to the interview, because I'm like, that's really cool. And everyone that helped me at the start and did interviews with me before I had any name whatsoever, when I just launched the channel, Aaron Singerman was my first guest, and he said, absolutely, I'll come on.
Oh, that's a great first guest, man.
And I had no views. I had no videos. I think maybe I had one video. I'm not sure. But the people that helped me out early, I'm like, if I don't do the same for other people, like, what can I say about myself? You know what I mean?
That is great. Yeah. That is greatly appreciated. And let me try to just explain why I appreciate that so much. Since I do interviews, there have been people that I've gotten on and they have opened the door for me to that particular genre of whatever topic I'm interviewing. So in bodybuilding, it was Samson Dowda. He was the first big name.
He's a great guy, man.
Yeah, he was the first big name that came out. Once I got him, then all the other bodybuilders I reached out to saw that I was not a joke.
Yeah.
And then from powerlifting, it was Rita West, who was a American female powerlifting squat record holder for, I think, almost 10 years. And at 148 pounds, she had squatted, like, I think it was 675. It was insane. Yeah. The woman is
that
amazing.
suited or is that raw?
That's equipped. That's equipped. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it was arm wrestling. It was Paul Lynn, who was an American national champion. And then there was Michelle Dugan in female arm wrestling. Those two, once I got those two, and those four, just everything started coming in. And then what was funny is I had interviewed a former organized crime member who got out of prison.
I've seen you started doing something.
And who got out of prison. And because him and I were from the same neighborhood, because we both were from New York. So him and I were from the same neighborhood. So he came out. Once I got him, I got somebody else. And then I'm having another one come on. So when you do that, when you do this and you say, I'm going to reciprocate, if somebody like myself greatly appreciates that, because if and when I ever get to the point of your success, I'm hoping I can do the same thing for the young people, coming up, and it's the same way. It's the same way in the gym too. Like if I see a young guy or a young girl who doesn't know what they're doing, I'll try to help them and show them, Remember being like 14 years old and you're in the gym, you have no clue what you're doing. You think you do. And then somebody's like, let me help you out here.
It's funny, man. I had that happen to me when I was probably about 14. And my dad used to compete. So I thought I knew everything. You know what I mean? I'm like, okay, you got to lift between this rep range. You got to do these exercises. You got to do it this way. And I was probably doing something, probably lifting like a bit of an arsehole, man. Like, to be honest, just lifting too heavy and whatnot. And he sort of told me what to do. And I'm like, and even myself, I'm like, now if I said to a younger kid, I'm like, oh, and then if they didn't take my advice, I'd be like, oh, like, you know, a bit like, feel put out somewhat. I mean, you can't help it, you know. But when I was that age as well, I'm like, oh, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Even though he's way bigger than me, you know, had way more muscle. He probably still wasn't a huge guy, but back then, when you're 14 years old, everyone looks enormous.
Of course,
But it's funny how your perspective changes so much from being that age to where I am now, I guess. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so you start Desktop Bodybuilding, and you're doing great, and then you have this one video that basically makes you skyrocket. So go ahead and explain that.
Yeah, so basically, was doing it for a little bit, getting, you know, some okay views on some videos, but still very, compared to what I'm doing now, it was, you know, 1/10, 1/15, 1/20th of what my views would be now per video. And I did a video, and it was about, it's basically a lot of bodybuilders' opinions on Sean Roden's guest posing, where he came in really out of shape.
Oh, I remember that. Yes.
Yeah, so I discussed it a little bit, gave a little bit of my opinion on it. Jay Cutler gave his opinion. Sean Ray, obviously, as he always has an opinion.
Yeah, right.
Gave his opinion, and a bunch of others. So I sort of featured their opinions in the video, gave a little bit of my opinion, and it just sort of blew up. I was like, whoa. Like, I remember checking the YouTube stats, and I didn't check it for a little bit. And I looked back, and I'm like, this has 10,000 views. And I was flipping out because I think the biggest I had before that was maybe 1,500 or 1,000 views.
Yeah.
Sorry about the dog outside too, by the way.
That's all right.
I should come down soon. But so that video got 10,000 views. I was like, wow, blown away by that. Started doing more videos, and then those videos were picking up traction as well. And that Sean Roden video continued to take off. And then after, it was like a couple of weeks, I think it had like 100,000 views. I'm like, this is insane. And I wasn't monetized at the time as well. So I was like, I'm going to get onto this monetization and get this sort of happening, and sort of got that happening. And then my channel started to roll for about 2 months, maybe 3. And then I was struck down with glandular fever. I don't know, in America, Canada, those sorts of places, it's called mono. I think that might be what it's called.
Oh,
and
right. Yes, mono. Yeah, I had that when I was a kid. The kissing disease, bro.
Yeah. So it caused huge issues for me. And my partner at the time, she got it as well. So she got it first, and she had it for like 2 weeks, went away. And then it was 6 months later or 5 months later, we both started feeling sick at the same time. And the second time, I suppose, she had it, and the first time I had it, I believe it actually got into my liver, because I'd done a lot of research on it, and yeah, it got very, very bad. So we were incredibly itchy all the time because our liver inflammation, our liver markers were through the roof, like crazy high, to where literally there wasn't a second of a day where I wasn't itchy. So we were sleeping like 1 hour a night and stuff because we just physically couldn't sleep. Like, we were itching ourselves. Like, she had bruises all over her legs just from itching in her sleep because she itched herself so aggressively. So it was crazy. She ended up in hospital for a little bit with it because she said, I don't know what to do anymore. She couldn't work. I couldn't work. It was really crazy, man. And I actually got it back. I got glandular fever back when I started the Desktop Bodybuilding thing. So this was much earlier. I had it once. And then the second time I had it was, you know, a couple of months after my channel started to take off. So I
relapse. Yeah, they call it a relapse.
Yeah, so I stopped the bedding business, and I was like, I'm going to put all my effort into YouTube. And then that happened. So I was like, oh my God, couldn't have been worse timing. Just had my first child as well. So it was horrendous timing, man. Like my child, I think, was only about a month old when I first got, or when I got glandular fever the second time. And the only thing I discovered that actually helped, because I was getting, you know, scripts for all these antihistamines and things like that, that are meant to help the itching. None of them helped. Like, honestly, none of them did anything. The only thing that helped, because my partner at the time says, you know, why don't you try smoking a little bit of weed? And I was like, I'm like, I'll try anything. Like, I'm like, honestly, like, because I look like a drug addict, man. I was itching myself on the couch all the time. I couldn't eat. I lost 20-something kilos. It was crazy, man. Like, if you saw me, you'd be like, whoa, like, this guy has issues. But I tried it, and it was the only thing that took the itching away. Literally the only thing. But I had to it would take it away for about 2 hours. Like, I'd say take it away about 80-90% of the itching. So it allowed me to sleep. I recovered way quicker. And it's just crazy to me that this stuff's illegal. You know what I mean? So it's mind-blowing, man. Yeah. So that helped me a huge amount. Eventually I got over it, got back into doing YouTube and stuff. But really, that's when when I sort of got better, that's when the pandemic was kicking off. So I just got back a bunch of clients in terms of coaching and stuff like that. And then I was like, cool, get back into my YouTube at the same time, just try to build up my money. And then, yeah, obviously the pandemic hit. I do posing clients and stuff like that as well. So people bought, packs of 10 posing sessions and stuff. So I was refunding a bunch of people and all that sort of stuff. And obviously with a child, it's like, oh my God. So that was a really rough time, man. And obviously being self-employed too, like we had like government things where, if your work's affected or whatever, you get a certain amount of money for a certain period of time, to help support and all that sort of stuff. Because a lot of people couldn't work when the pandemic started. And my partner at the time as well, she's a New Zealand citizen, so she wasn't an Australian citizen, so she wasn't entitled to any of those benefits and stuff.
Wow.
So it was a really rough time for us, obviously, with the financial stress, plus obviously, trying to get back into doing the YouTube thing, with a child and having to watch him a lot and stuff, and then doing all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's really been, I suppose, now it's getting to a point where it's like my life's getting more comfortable, I guess, to a stage, and I'm able to, I want to hire, a part-time nanny or something like that to help with my child. So, or my children now. I've got 2.
That's fantastic. I'm glad.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Really glad you.
So I'm blessed.
Yeah, glad everything is working out for you, man. Because that the lockdown and COVID really fucked everything up, and then plus you were sick on top of that.
It was crazy, man.
Are you guys still locked down over there in Australia?
Well, it's up and down, man. Like our state, so you guys have I think it's like mayors and stuff like that in your state. We have what we call like premiers. So you got the Prime Minister, which is the Prime Minister of Australia, and then you got premiers in every state. So our premier, and everyone has different. We have 2 main parties over here, but they're both sort of the same. It's not like in America where it's like one's right, one's left. It's very different to that. It's 2 parties are basically the same, and they just sort of argue each other on every single point. So the way it's set up over here, it's actually pretty bad because I don't agree with either party. So it sort of puts you voting for independence. You know what I mean? And independents are never going to win. So it's like, what do you do?
It's kind of the same over here. You got the Democrat and Republican Party, and then you do have an independent. And they never win. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. So where the state I'm in now, we don't really have any of the virus and stuff like that here. There's a couple of cases, but we don't really hear about it in our state. But as soon as these other states have a couple of cases, like with the new variant and stuff that's out, we close our borders to the other states immediately. So we're locked into I'm in Perth, which is the most isolated capital city in the world, because we're on one side of Australia and there's really no other big capital cities over here. Because you've got obviously the East Coast, you've got Melbourne, Sydney, Tasmania, which is obviously its own island, which is originally where I'm from. You got Brisbane, you got all those states up the East Coast, but we're sort of stuck over here. And when our borders close, a lot of time we can't leave and go to these states and come back. So we're sort of stuck here, which I don't like because I like to travel and stuff a lot. We can't leave the country. I mean, that's meant to be changing soon, but with the whole new variant, it makes it tough. So we sort of opened up, I think, things to in a lot of the other states, you have to have vaccine passports and stuff like that. So you've got, you have to be double vaxxed to go to the gym and do all that sort of stuff. Fortunately here, you don't need that. The amount of bad reactions I've heard of, and personally have friends that have had very bad reactions, like someone to the point where they had their second shot and they have ulcerative colitis, and it was recommended they have part of their colon removed based on the reaction they had.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow,
it's crazy,
it has not been that bad over here. I mean, there has been some reaction, but by and far, the majority of people that get the vaccine seem to be doing okay.
Yeah. Well, this one was Pfizer. So I don't know if it's a Pfizer one specifically. I had a client as well that just had gut issues after both of them. He had the first one and his gut was bloating a bit. And he had the second one, his gut bloated more, but it sort of went down after a week. So those sorts of things, I'm like, okay, well, it's not too bad. But the amount of cases and stuff here, it's so minimal, man. People are flipping out when you get 10 cases in one of our states, and it's because it's about to break out or whatever, and then it will go into lockdown and gyms close and all that sort of stuff. But now they're saying,
dude.
Oh yeah, it's terrible, and it plays with people's businesses as well. People are losing businesses, and it more worries me about mental health of people because even for me, I didn't have a business. I've got YouTube and stuff, fortunately.
Really, thank God. Yeah.
exactly. But you know, like that's why I'm putting more into YouTube now, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to take a little bit away from coaching because it's so unpredictable. You know, if I have 5 clients, 6 clients prepping for a comp, they're paying me monthly, and then the comp gets called off, which a ton of them have. Then they want refunds, or they want, like, and I understand it because I wouldn't want to pay money to someone and get 4 weeks into my prep of a 16-week prep and be like, oh, there's still $1,000 or whatever that, I paid this person. I'm like, wow, have it back. It's only fair. So, but it makes it tough for me, so I'm like, that's why I want to put more into YouTube, less into coaching.
Right. Now, listen, sincerely, I'm glad everything is working out for you. And I'm actually really glad that you have that YouTube channel. Otherwise, you'd be up shit's creek without a paddle, man. Oh, shit.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the first time I heard of you, I think you had some kind of collaboration with Fouad Abiad. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. So Fouad reached out to me a while ago, and he started sponsoring me. I interviewed him a few times for the channel and whatnot as well. I'm still a huge fan of Fouad.
Me too.
Even though we're no longer associated now.
I'm a huge fan, even though he turned me down twice for an interview. But I did have Paul Lozano on twice, and Guy Sestanino, and Sergio Wills Jr. So.
Oh, that's cool, man. I heard. I don't know if it was your first or your second interview. I think it was your first interview with Paul. So I have to go check out the second one, man, because I didn't know you had him on again.
The second one was talking about the Arnold Classic that just passed, and the trouble that they were having with the judging. That was when Nick won, but all morning they had what's his name in second.
Dave Kukla?
Yeah, they had Kukla in second, and then in the afternoon in the finals they brought Ian in second.
Yeah, that was crazy. I mean, I don't think they should ever really do a top 2 call out if there's doubt, I guess. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In terms of like, who's going to play second. So. And
then Sergio won best poser. Am I accurate?
I think he did. Yeah, I think
he won best poser, but he didn't win the posing round. It was something strange. I don't remember. I'd have to go back and follow it. But it was really strange. Like, it was, right?
They need more clarity on that because they're judging the physique in the posing round.
Right. That's what it was.
I think they should be really judging a combination of a physique and posing because it's like, well, what's the point? You know what I mean? Like, I understand that you've got to show physique off properly to the best of your ability. And even if that's 75% of a posing round, I'm fine with that. But just at least, if you want posing to be entertaining and for it to be a thing that gets, for the guys to put actual effort into their posing, I think you have to at least judge the entertainment value of it. I suppose just the way they pose, the way it flows and all that sort of stuff. I think that's how it should be. Right.
Well, now it comes back to memory. When Greene and Cedric had, I think it was 2017 or 16. I don't remember. I think 17. Greene beat Cedric because of the posing round, because it was 30% of the judging. But Sergio wins the posing round, but I forgot what place he came in. Like, if it's
5th or 6th.
Yeah. So if it's 30%, then he should have placed much higher. It shouldn't have been. So then we had discussed that anyway. But so I apologize. So go ahead, continue with Fouad Abiad.
Yeah, so basically I was just saying, I pretty much finished on that. So yeah, basically he sponsored me for a certain amount of time, and that came to an end, and yeah, we're still on good terms and all that sort of stuff. So big fan of what he does. Listen to all his podcasts and all that sort of stuff. So
they're hysterical. I mean, they're between Guy and Nick. I mean, they're so funny. And then of course, God rest his soul, Luke Sandow. They were hilarious. My wife knows nothing about bodybuilding, zero. She knows I like it. That's it. And she would sit there, and she still does, and watches the podcast with Fouad, but only if Nick is on, because she liked Nick the best. She thinks he's hysterical. So if he's not on, she doesn't want to watch it.
That's funny. And
it's a tremendous YouTube channel and podcast. It's hilarious. You don't even have to be a bodybuilding person to understand it. It's great. You're starting to get into a little bit of gossip, if you will, on your podcast YouTube channel. What made you do that?
So I sort of had to change, I suppose, the way that I cover things and do things a bit more efficiently. The reason being is because, you know, like things didn't work out with my partner, the mother of my kids. So I have my children half the time. So, you know, one day I have them 4 days of a week. The next week, 1 week I have them 4 days. Next week I have them 3 days. It just alternates like that. And, you know, my former partner as well was having treatment for some stuff, some health conditions and stuff. So, it makes it tough to, when you really don't have a full-time week, to, you know, obviously try to get out enough content. So I had to sort of diversify things a little bit and cover my content in a different way, because I was doing the bodybuilding news videos, which were, I'm a perfectionist. So I try to put, you know, enough into each story I cover, but sometimes I'd have 7, 8 stories in one of my news videos, and I'm trying to pull, you know, pictures and videos for each one of them. And I'm like, these videos are taking too long. It's too long. So I want to cover more individual topics. What Nick Trigilli's doing now is sort of a similar thing, how he's covering individual topics. I cover it a little bit differently to Nick. But yeah, there's more gossipy sort of stuff. And there's been, honestly, a lot of it in bodybuilding right now. So I don't intend to just cover like this person versus this person. But if it comes up, I'm going to cover it. You know what I mean?
Sure. Absolutely.
Unless it's incredibly untasteful for whatever reason. Like normally if it's like relationship stuff, I'll sort of steer away from it. Unless it's super public and it's in your face, you know what I mean? Sure. Because the way I sort of look at it, like in bodybuilding, I think you need to be more careful. Like being a TMZ sort of channel, like, you know, where it's all gossip and all stuff like that. Sometimes I think in bodybuilding, it shouldn't necessarily be done like that, just because it is such a tight-knit small community. And if you do, I suppose, piss off enough people, everyone sort of turns on you. I've actually seen this lately a little bit with Dave Palumbo. Like a few things happened with Dave and having Sean Ray on there and stuff like that. And in the comments, man, like people have been brutal on Dave Palumbo. Like I really like Dave. Like
I sort of like.
He's always been a very nice guy to me. Obviously I worked with him and stuff like that, so I know him personally. He stayed at my house. I don't have a bad thing to say about Dave Palumbo. I think Dave maybe says things and they come out, and it doesn't come out exactly how he means it. So it comes off as maybe being a little bit negative. And he has done the odd show where I'm like, oh, it came across a little bit negative or whatever. But I think being Australian as well, a lot of Australians are very, what do you say? Like, we say like, you know, we're taking the piss, which basically means like, you're sort of like, I don't know what you guys call it, like taking the mickey out of someone. Like, and we're very much a culture like that. Like you sort of like joke with your friends and be sort of harsh. But we don't take it too serious, you know? Like, we don't take things too serious.
No, but I do that all the time. Absolutely. And I do that all the time with friends, you know, hazing, whatever you want to call it. You know, it's shooting the shit, whatever. I mean, that's a guy thing. I've had Dave Palumbo on my channel. I interviewed him. And up until, what's today's date? The 5th?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah, today's December 5th. Up until the 5th, today I had a commercial running on his RX Muscle for my YouTube channel.
Yes, I've seen that. Yeah, that's how I actually started watching you.
Oh, thank you very much. So it's friggin' working. So I should pay for the next 3 months. But I had stopped it because it's just getting expensive. You know, since he's got so many subscribers, it's getting a little expensive. So I was like, all right, maybe I should not. And if it stops, my channel stops growing, I'll go back to it. And I had sent him an email, you know, telling him that, you know, unfortunately I'm not going to continue only because it's getting expensive, whatever. But listen, you know, if it's a news channel, I've turned mine into an interview channel, so I kind of escape the bashing me kind of deal because I'm just interviewing you. But if it's a news channel, there's going to be criticism, and that's what social media gave birth to with bodybuilding. Is before social media, there was no criticism with the exception of the judging and maybe a magazine article. But now they're experiencing what every other athlete experiences. So if you were, you know, in America, if you're playing basically baseball, basketball, or football, there are a ton of news stations that cover it and have been covering it for decades. And, you know, there's a name for guys like that called the Monday morning quarterback, which is because Sunday night is the big football game, big night for a football game. And then Monday morning, the news comes on ESPN or whatever sports news you have in your state or your city. And then they give their opinion on what went wrong, right? and they're basically just shitting on the athletes or praising them.
Mm.
And social media has basically given birth to that, to bodybuilding. And some bodybuilders handle it better and others don't. Like, my attitude is, you're the prize. Like, you're the best. That's why people are talking about you. Just ignore it. Who cares what people say? You're on stage. You're winning the money. You're the best out there. You know, and some guys did not. Like, I remember with Louis DeMarco, when, what's his name, went up to him during the convention.
Bonac.
Yeah, William Bonac. I mean, I get it, but it's still, he's just a news outlet. He's not saying anything terrible, unless he did say something and I just don't remember. He could have said something awful, but I just don't remember. But when Dave Palumbo gives his opinion on what he thinks about a bodybuilder, like when he said what James Holling said, that's his opinion. It doesn't mean it's good. It doesn't mean it's fact. It doesn't mean it's true. It doesn't mean James is never going to win the Olympia. Yeah, you know what I mean? It just means that's his opinion. Just like, James is one of the greatest bodybuilders in the world. Like, I would look at it like Dave never turned pro, so I don't care. You know, let him say what he wanted to say, right? I mean, but who cares? I mean, like, just, you know, just wipe it off.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean anything, man.
And the thing is as well, like, I totally get it, because I've competed before and I've had people criticize me and all that sort of stuff, and I know when I compete again, there's going to be more criticism on me, just because, like, as my profile gets bigger and I compete, people are going to want to hang shit on me. Like, I put up a photo on my YouTube community tab the other day. I would say, like, honestly, I had a fairly good amount of, like, positive comments, but initially it was a lot of negative, man. Like, there was a lot of guys saying either the steroid comment, oh, steroids, oh, you're running trend, you're running this, you're running whatever.
As if they know.
Then, yeah, as if they know exactly what I'm doing. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Right.
And then it was people, like, guys saying, like, oh, your forearms aren't big enough. Oh, your arm doesn't look right. Your muscle looks this. Or it's just a lot of negativity. But then you've got the people that obviously go the opposite way. So no matter what, when you put something up on social media, if you're a big enough name where people don't feel like they, I suppose, in a way, emotionally connect with you, they feel like if you're, you know, either well-known, if you're a pro athlete or whatever, people think that that's open slather. They can say whatever they want. And because they have this almost open ticket with social media to have direct interaction with these guys, they still think they can say whatever they want. So I think there's many fans that say a lot of disrespectful stuff, a lot of stuff that you probably shouldn't say, but it's going to happen. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, you can try to educate people and say, hey, these people are still real people too. And, you know, they, you know, all that sort of stuff. And I feel like I would like it if more of the public was, you know, critiquing's fine. Saying this guy, you know, if he brings up his back, he'll be a great bodybuilder. Or if he brings up his back and fills out a bit more or whatever, you know, I think that's cool. But there are a lot of fans out there that are very harsh. But I think a lot of the pro athletes need to remember, a lot of the fans that are saying the really harsh stuff are probably like 17 years old.
Yeah.
And they're not educated. You know?
They don't know anything.
So
they don't know nothing.
Their opinion doesn't matter.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly. Just let it, you know, pro athletes have been doing it for years where they just, you know, they just let the critics be critics and they don't respond. And that's the best thing. Because then you get wrapped up in this whole drama, and who needs that? Like, I you know, some people love it. Don't get me wrong. And sometimes if it's done with sportsmanship, it's fun. Like what Nick was doing with Blessing, like that was fun and it was cool. And it was not underhanded or dirty or, you know, any low blows. But sometimes it gets a little hairier. Sometimes two people really don't like each other, and you know, sometimes it gets a little bit to be too much. So my attitude, not that any pro bodybuilders are ever going to fucking watch this, but if they do, my attitude is just shut up and do your thing on stage and let the naysayers say what they want, because they don't count. The only people that count are the judges.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
I think people as well, like, I understand, like, Ian Valier, when he won that New York Pro, when it was sort of, there's a lot of conjecture around it. Should he have won? People were saying Max Charles should have won. He came fifth and all that sort of stuff. I can understand for Ian, that would be frustrating. Like, I would be like, I just won the New York Pro. You're all happy about it. You jump on social media, go to post something, and all you're seeing is negativity slammed all over your profile. Yes. And he had people message him, all that sort of stuff. I'm like, that's nasty. Like, I got off stage once, and someone close to me said to me, they're like, oh, I had you in second. And I just won a comp, and I was so stoked about it. It was like a national level competition. And I was like, oh, I want to hand my trophy back. Like straight away, that's what went into my head. I was like, oh, fuck this. Like instantly it pulled my mood down. But that was from a friend and all that sort of stuff. But I do get it. I totally understand. But I think pro athletes especially need to know that responding is rarely or pretty much never going to end up positive for them.
That's right.
Even if their point is completely valid, they can give their reasons and stuff, but when they start to rage and they have arguments with people that they don't even know online, that's when it looks negative on them for whatever reason. It looks petty or whatever. So I think the best thing is just to keep your mouth closed and realize that, you know, while I still get negative comments, man, I've had people say horrible stuff in YouTube comments to me, and I'm like, whoa, what did I do to this guy? And it does sort of like, you know, you sort of absorb some of it, but now it's I'm so desensitized to it, man. It's just like people can say some nasty stuff, and I'm just like, you know, laugh it off and move on to the next comment.
I can't wait till people say some terrible things about me, because that's how you know you became a success.
That's when you know you're doing something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I made this one. I interviewed this one director. He was a director of adult entertainment, but he was just starting. He only directed like 2 movies and low budget stuff, nothing like you would ever you would ever see or anything like that. And his wife was also a adult film star, but she was an actress and he was a director. And of course, she would be working with other guys. So one of my questions was, how do you deal with that? How do you deal with your wife working with other men? And he started giving me this answer, and I felt I was getting pulled in, because I'm thinking to myself, because I could never do that, right?
Yeah, maybe.
And I, instead of it being an interview, it turned into me like being like, yo, how the fuck can you do that? You know? and I'm thinking to myself, God, if I had, then I realized what I was doing, and I stopped, right? Because I'm supposed to be neutral. I'm not, right? It's an interview show. I'm supposed to be neutral. Yeah. And then I realized, yeah, if I was like, you know, a Joe Rogan or you know, a Valuetainment or Vlad TV, I would have been destroyed. People would have ripped me apart, you know, or people would have sided with me, you know. But thank God, like nobody wants.
Well, I don't think something like that, because obviously you're the majority. You know what I mean? Because most people cannot deal with that. Like obviously, like I know I can't, man. I'm like the opposite of that. Like
and I was getting pulled in. Like I was like, this guy's giving me some. And I remember in my head going, you know, and I just was like, all right, I gotta stop. All right, stop. You're supposed to be neutral. You're supposed to be asking questions, follow up questions, and letting them give their opinion. That's it. But anyway, so since we're doing some gossiping, so on and so forth, you had brought up Brian Singerman. And he seems to be. I'm sorry, Aaron Singerman. I apologize. I apologize. You know better than me, because you have your finger on the pulse better than I do. He seems to be in a little bit of hot water, and it was. You probably know better than I do. He was partners with Blackstone Labs. Is that accurate?
Yeah. So he was working with PJ Braun, and they had a company together called Blackstone. So that's the company that was obviously, you know, they were doing a pro hormone thing, selling them. And when they brought in like the blanket ban of pro hormones, where they're like, oh, okay, well, everything's banned, they continue to sell their stuff, because it still wasn't individual products listed. I mean, there was some obviously individual compounds and stuff listed that were banned, and then but there was that blanket ban where there was several, they weren't the only ones. They were one of the big ones that continued to do it, but they weren't the only ones. There was heaps of other companies out there still doing it. Same thing happened in Australia with peptides. Peptides were sort of legally, I guess, being sold here. Mm-hmm. And then I think an AFL team, which is Australian rules football, they got busted, and a rugby team over here got busted as well using peptides, and it wasn't on the banned list. But they, you know, they said it was bringing the game into disrepute and all that sort of stuff, and you know, players got banned for seasons and all that sort of stuff, which is sort of ridiculous. But then it was very grey market, you know. It's like, are they banned? Are they not banned? And you know, I know a bunch of companies here got in trouble as well. So unfortunately, they were very successful at what they did. So it you know, means they get in more trouble, I guess. So it's super unfortunate. It sounds like Aaron, by at least the public documents, is cooperating, which means he'll probably get a lesser sentence, which is obviously great for Aaron. Aaron has kids and stuff, but obviously it means, you know, potentially maybe throwing other people under the bus. I don't know how exactly it works, so I don't want to speak too much on that.
Right.
But yeah, it's serious, man. Like, you know, these guys, it seems like they're both going to go to jail, unfortunately. And I know Aaron, and Aaron obviously gave me my start in this, so it's an uncomfortable story to report on, because when it's someone who you know, you don't want to report negative news on them. You really don't.
Sure. But yeah, it's a personal relationship, absolutely.
Exactly, but you have an obligation, you know. So because I feel, I mean, I've done it before where I haven't reported on something, and I think it's just purely out of being too busy and not getting around to doing it.
Right.
And I had people roast me in the comments saying, like, you're avoiding this, report on it. And so I think it's because I knew someone, I can't even remember what it was.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, people are brutal, man.
Yeah, they really are.
Yeah, so I felt like I had an obligation to report on. I think I was probably the first or one of the first to put out the video on that. But yeah, it was public knowledge, man. Like I knew it was coming out, and I'm like, every channel's going to be reporting on it, so I may as well do it, and, you know, not try to put a positive spin on it, but at least, you know, give some sort of a background on Aaron and my relationship with him, and, you know, put that out there as well, because if I'm reporting on it and there's, you know, even some sort of potential bias or whatever, I want to obviously put that out there and let people know, look, I know Aaron, so here's but here's the situation, here's what I'm reading out off this website. Yeah.
I hope it doesn't affect RenCon 1, because it's a lot of careers and a lot of big bodybuilding. I really hope it doesn't affect what a friend of mine lives in Florida, and he goes to the RenCon 1 gym in Florida. We grew up together in New York. I wound up in Jersey, and he went to Florida. But Jersey is like a stone throws away from New York, right? And he goes to the gym there, and he sees Kai Greene working out there and James Hollingshead, and he says the gym is absolutely beautiful and so on and so forth. So I hope, for his sake, that it doesn't affect RenCon 1, because it's pretty much, I mean, as far as I could tell, the biggest supplement company in the world right now. I mean, he has strongmen, he has arm wrestlers, Monster Michael Todd. I mean, he has kind of got his fingers in all the other niche sports, if you will, besides bodybuilding, which I think is really smart, because it's not mainstream, but you're also hitting other audiences. Like when he started endorsing Monster Michael Todd, you know, then you had the whole arm wrestling community, you know, jumping on. And I had the privilege of interviewing him and talking about it. And of course, he was plugging all, you know, the supplements that he uses from RenCon 1 and so on and so forth. And the same thing with Adam Shear, who was a professional wrestler. And it was Braun Strowman was his wrestling name. And it was the same thing. And it was really, really a smart move, because it's not mainstream, but you're still gaining other clientele, you know. And I think he was the first one to really think about that and do that, you know.
Yeah, and being in bodybuilding as well, I think it's smart from Aaron, because Aaron obviously, you know, started in bodybuilding, and it's very easy to mentally stay, you know, okay, I'm going to sponsor bodybuilders. You know, obviously they're the biggest dudes, and people are going to look up to them and all that sort of stuff. But it's very smart getting these, you know, arm wrestlers, strong men, you know, wrestlers as well. Yeah, powerlifters. Yeah, it's really smart, because while I don't notice that, you know, I literally, like, I've noticed, I see, oh yeah, they've sponsored Brian Shaw, they've sponsored, you know, this person, that person, or whatever. I sort of see it, but at the same time, like, I never sort of correlate that in my own mind as the company growing and being a smart move, because I'm like, oh my God, I don't know that dude. Or I might know Brian Shaw, obviously, but I don't know an arm wrestler. I don't know this person or whatever. But it's obviously they've got to reach now in those more niche communities. So it's very smart. You know? Well,
70% of my show is bodybuilding, arm wrestling, and powerlifting. And you've been to the Olympia or the Arnold Classic in the States, I'm sure?
I've been to Olympia, yeah.
Yeah, so you know, when you go to the expo, there's the arm wrestling going on, powerlifting going on, and bodybuilding going on, and those three are very tightly intertwined, which is why I decided to interview all three, and then trying to pick up other genres on the way, you know. But yeah, it was a really, really smart move, and I hope, for his sake, that that RenCon 1 is not touched. I'm sure if he does go to prison, it's not going to be. He's not going to prison with, you know, organized crime members and murderers, and it's probably going to be some like you know some kind of like tennis court kind of prison. So I'm sure he'll be able to run it RenCon from there. I don't think it's going to be a big deal, you know.
Yeah, it's a white collar crime, man. I don't know if you can actually run it from there per se. I think there's some sort of. I remember hearing something. I don't know if it was Dave Palumbo or one of his other channels talking about it, where I don't know how much he can actually do from prison because of, I don't know, whatever the legalities of it and whatnot. But he'll be going in there. He'll be planning if he does go away, there was people talking that, if he gives, them enough in terms of cooperating, he might not get any prison time, which, would be amazing for him. But
yeah, sure.
He would be putting in all the plans in place and stuff, worst case scenario.
Right.
He's not a silly man. He's very smart at what he does. Like, he's a very driven individual. And, from his past, obviously, he's a former drug addict, that he said that, he learned his hustle from hustling for drugs initially. And then he just conveyed that into business.
Wow.
So, the hustle for drugs when you're dependent on drugs is, people that haven't, even known someone or, heard a lot about it. It's insane because people are completely dependent on it. It's like, okay, well, I've got a $200 a day drug habit. You got to feed that. You got to feed it somehow. And then, like, I even see it like the other, when was it? It's probably a few months back. I saw a few guys, and these guys look a little bit dodgy, I was walking out of a department store, and I see them walking, and then I just hear the person working there saying, hey, like, because they started to walk quicker and they had a few things under their arms. And I was like, did they buy those? I'm like, no, they didn't buy them. And so I yelled out to them, and the person I was with at the time, they're like, let them go. They're like, don't get involved. Because I yelled at these two guys and swore at them a little bit as if to come back. And then I sort of thought to myself, I'm like, oh yeah, these guys are on stuff, they're on something. So I'm like, probably not worth me getting stabbed or something over. So I just was like, okay, back off.
Yeah, I know. I actually had an instance yesterday. I have an advantage of starting my YouTube channel because I already have a career established. So I am a sewer worker in New York City, but for 10 years before that, I was an electrician. So I still do electrical work on the side. And what had happened was I was going to do a little side job in Staten Island, New York, which is like a half hour from me. And I spoke to the guy during the week, and I had no idea that he was a drug addict. I have no clue. And I walked into his house, and his father, who was probably in his 70s, was, told me what he needed me to do, but he wasn't there. And then he came stumbling in, and I was like, and this guy was out of it. And I was like,
oh, really?
It was a good thing. Like, I was already done. And I was like, he couldn't even stand up. It was awful. It was really bad. Like, he was holding on to the kitchen table. He was going to fall over. I was like, oh, let me get the hell out of here. And,
wow.
Yeah. And if, you have no idea that the reach that it gets, that it gets to, I can only imagine, like, his parents who are in their 70s have to deal with that. Oh my God. Probably their whole life.
It's crazy. And it's so much worse than we actually think as well. Like, people have a lot of hidden addictions and all that sort of stuff, and it's crazy, man. Like, I feel like for whatever reason, I've learned about either so many people that have, low key drug addictions or whatever. And, like, I have a mate, a good mate of mine. He was telling me a story that he was with someone, and I won't mention his name or anything, but he was with someone, and he found out, I believe she faked that she had an illness, right? And was going to get treatment stuff for it. But what she was doing was going and getting ice. She was a meth addict. And she was doing it while he was out of the house at work and stuff. And he'd come home and she's a bit quiet and stuff. And he's like, oh, it's just because she's not well or whatever. But she's literally doing ice while he's not at home. And,
wow.
It came out and she eventually told him and stuff. I'm like, that's insane that someone can hide that, for starters. But it's like, people were, and a drug like ice, like, a former client of mine got addicted, and I tried to help him out a little bit and stuff, but it is one of those drugs. And he said, he said, oh, I thought I could do a little bit and be good, and I wouldn't get addicted.
A casual user, right?
Yeah, you do a little bit, and you go, oh, okay, well, that's fun. Do a little bit more. I'll do a little bit more. Oh, okay, and then you sort of got to do it, like, and you get hooked on it. And he was saying, trying to come off it is the hardest thing in the world.
What advice did you give him? Any advice to try to avoid it? Please tell me. Please tell me you didn't. Please tell me you didn't tell him to go running, because a runner's high is as good as a drug user's high.
No,
please.
No, I didn't know that. I did a little bit of research into it. There's, I don't know if you know what modafinil is or armodafinil.
No idea.
It's basically. Have you seen the movie Limitless?
Yes.
where they take that pill or something like that.
Yes.
It's sort of like people say that's the closest equivalent to that sort of thing.
Okay.
It's almost like, I suppose, maybe a little bit like an Adderall or whatever. And that's meant to help when people are trying to wean off. It's meant to help sort of, with energy and all that sort of stuff. And you don't get those big lows and stuff.
Wow.
So yeah, I did a bit of research, tried to help them out and stuff like that. But it's one of those things where the person has to want to help themselves, man. You can only do so much. I mean, you hear about these people going to rehab and stuff like that, and they still don't get better.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, how much can you do? You do what you can, and so you can sleep at night. And if they choose to want to help themselves, then that's awesome. Then they can get over it. But it is one of those things that is incredibly hard to get over for people, and then it's heartbreaking. Like seeing someone that's looking amazing, competing on stage, winning competitions, and then they're in that situation. It is hard to see, man. Like I don't like to see it at all. I don't like to see it in someone that I don't even like. So,
yeah, I can't only imagine. I mean, my I had a good friend. I don't work with him anymore. We still work together, and his wife was an addict, and he sent her to a clinic to get treated, and they told, I don't know the stats was for, I'm assuming the stats is just that clinic. I'm not sure. I don't know what the stats are in Australia or the United States, but I'm assuming it's just that clinic. And they said that they have a 70% relapse from men and 90% for women, because women are able to use sex to get what they want.
Real. Yeah. But what makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes
and
sense,
I was like, wow, but anyway, so what was stupid side note. The reason why I said that run is high. There's this great comic. I don't know if you ever heard of him, Artie Lang, and he's from the States. Yeah. And he's a heroin addict. I believe he's clean now, but he was in rehab. I don't know how many times. So there was this one time he was in rehab, and he does this joke about getting out of rehab, being clean, and then trying to go to the gym and hire himself a personal trainer. And his personal trainer tells him, a runner's high is as good as a heroin's high. And he said to the guy, have you ever tried heroin before? And he said, no. He said, well, you're not qualified to be in this conversation, have you? Right. And then he goes, you know what? As a goof, go out and try heroin and let me know if you're accurate. And he does this whole thing. It's just kind of funny. But anyway, whatever happened to Louis Marco? He hasn't been relative much anymore. Does he still have his YouTube channel or no?
Well, he did a video the other day. I can't remember what it was on. I think he got like 10. I saw it was, he maybe did like, his views are much further down now because obviously he doesn't have the traction with YouTube and all that sort of stuff. But he got a little bit political. I saw a few videos he put out and was very negative on bodybuilding. He got a little bit political, and I think that turned a lot of people off. And then he just went away. He just stopped, and I'm like, I understand it, because you do get burnout with YouTube sometimes. Like you're going, and you're like, especially if you're not getting, maybe you're like, okay, I've got these views, and you're sort of on a bit of a high from it, and you keep pushing, and then your views go down a little bit. It's like, you get a little bit of that mental fatigue and burnout and whatnot. So I understand that, but obviously he's on such a good thing. He could be making amazing money right now. I don't know what he actually does or anything like that. Maybe he's doing well anyway. I'm not too sure, but
he's Canadian, right?
Yeah, he's French-Canadian, I believe.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, it was strange because he was huge for a little while, and then all of a sudden he just disappeared. As you know, the YouTube is you really have to stay on top of it. If you don't like doing it, there's no way you could do it. Like you have to really love doing it. Yeah. It's not like, so I try to put content out every day, and at the very least 4 days a week, and it's just a slow grind, I mean, some people are lucky enough where they have one that blows up and, they're on the map. But for the most part, most people, it's a very, very slow and steady grind,
Absolutely.
So now what is the future of Xavier Wills and Desktop Bodybuilding? You have any plans?
Yeah, so I definitely do. So my goals at the moment, just because obviously I mentioned my kids earlier, and obviously having them half the time makes it very hard to put everything into YouTube. As much as I want to put in, I'm the sort of person that would want to put in an 80-hour week, you know what I mean? Because I'm like a sicko like that. But obviously, trying to find some sort of balance in my life, you know what I mean? So I don't get that fatigue and burnout. Plus also having my kids, plus also, all my other obligations and stuff as well. What I'm working towards is hopefully in about 3 months getting a part-time nanny to help out with my kids, because obviously, I think about that and I think, do I really want to do that? And I think I've got to do that. You know, I've got to get some sort of care or help. So the time I do have my kids, I'm not trying to, you know, cook their dinner and run around and do all this sort of stuff because my kids are 1 and 2 years old. You know, that's a tough age. Yeah,
I know, but they got to be really cute though.
Oh, they are adorable. Like honestly, like if I wasn't on my phone right now, I'd probably be holding up photos of them on to this chat, man. So yeah, they're amazing, man. Like my son Kylo, he's like my little dude. You know, he's 2 years and 5 months, approximately about that. So he's at a cool age where he's starting to talk and all that sort of stuff. And we're not starting to talk. He's starting to put together, you know, conversations and you know, getting taught, trained, and all that sort of stuff. So we have a lot of fun. He doesn't always listen to me, but we have a lot of fun. And then my daughter, she's 1 year and he's about 2.5 almost, and she's 1 year and 3 months, 1 year 4 months. So she's at an age where, you know, she's just sort of gone through teething. Sleeping's getting better, thankfully. But we all just had a bout of gastro where we all got really, really sick. So that was a bit rough, and the sleeping sort of got worse again. And while you're trying to recover yourself, but they're not sleeping as well, so you're not getting as much sleep. It's like a vicious cycle. But when I went back to mum, I got some more sleep, and I'm all good now. But so for the future, I definitely do need to get some sort of care, because the time I actually have with them will be more quality time as well. You know, I'm not so much running around and trying to do stuff all at the same time. While having a 1 and a 2 year old, it's, you know, it's very time consuming. Like once they get to 3 and 4 and 4 and 5 and stuff, things will be a lot easier, because I can say they can go in their room, or they can go and watch TV, and I can tell them to do stuff, and they'll just actually just do it straight away. Sometimes, but when they're, you know, 1, you can't just tell your daughter, hey, you go there, like eat food and watch TV. Like she'll just be like, I want dad. You know, so, right. When I do get that care, I'll be able to obviously put more effort into desktop bodybuilding. More videos, hopefully transition to doing that pretty much solely. Maybe a tiny bit of posing on the side, a little bit of coaching just because I enjoy it. So yeah, definitely more content. So I want to get to a point where I'm putting out 2 videos a day every day. I believe.
Oh, that'd be great if you do that.
Yeah, if I worked full-time hours, I'd be able to do that easily. Now, I mean, I've had full-time hours available to me, and I'd still work after, you know, after the kids go to sleep and all that sort of stuff as well. In terms of me personally, I definitely want to compete and try to get my pro card in men's physique. It's not the division that I'm absolutely in love with, but I'm in love with the challenge of pushing my body to a look that I want, man. I like the men's physique look, you know, like it's amazing to, you know, these pro guys look incredible.
Classic physique or men's physique?
I used to be classic, but I'm men's physique now. Because the ceiling, I've had a lot of issues. So I slipped a few discs about 7 months ago, and I couldn't really walk for like a month. So it was incredibly painful, man. Like I can't even explain. Like when I first did it, I was just in the gym and I was completely locked up. I couldn't move. I had to have 3 people carry me out of the gym, lay me down on the back seat of a car, take me to hospital.
Wow.
Got to hospital. I had to get people to carry me out, put me in a wheelchair, and I was in emergency there for like 8 hours. And it's actually funny.
Well, you really had your share of hospital visits and sicknesses and whatnot.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So, you get knocked around a lot.
Yeah, so I was quickly going to this. So I was sitting in emergency, and I was in a lot of pain. So I'm sitting there, and it was packed. Like there was people passing out in there and stuff, and they weren't even getting seen. Like they was getting seen to when they passed out, but you know, there's a lot of sick people in there. I was like, oh my god, I'm not going to get seen to for a while.
Yeah.
I was in a lot of pain. Then my partner at the time said, you know, do you want me to bring you some weed? And I was just like, I laughed. I was like, haha, I wish. And she's like, seriously, I'll wheel you outside. I was like, fuck it.
I don't blame you, man.
And when I went back inside, I think because I went outside in the cold, my back just seized up more. I was like, oh my god. And I was like, you know, when you're freaking out, you're always passing out because of pain. But then obviously it's get kicked in. I relaxed, and I'm like, oh, thank God. But then it got 8 hours or 9 hours into actually being there, and they said, look, you're not going to get seen for another 7 hours. I'm like,
wow.
I'm like, okay. They're like, come back in the morning. You probably don't have to wait now. I was like, sweet. So I did that. I ended up eventually getting an MRI and all that sort of stuff. And as soon as I got the MRI, the woman came and she's like, just sit up very carefully, you know, all this sort of stuff. I'm like, oh my God, I know it's bad now, because she was like super cautious, and she's like, so she's like, have you wet yourself at all? Or do you have control down there? Have you lost feeling? I'm like, no. And then I'm like, I'm in a lot of pain. And then she's like, okay. She's like, I don't normally say this, but she's like, you've got a very bad bulging disc. Like, I saw the scans. It looked very unusual. And yeah, I got recommended to get surgery on it, but they said it's a year recovery. And I was like, I've got 2 young kids. I can't do that, you know?
Yeah,
So
right, yeah.
I basically wrote it out, doing rehab and stuff like that. And I've been able to get a decent amount of muscle back, which is good. And I feel like I'm at a stage where if in 6 months or a year or whatever, and, you know, my schedule freed up and I was able to get, you know, hire a part-time nanny, I'd be able to get back on stage again and do better than I've done before. So I got second to the guy that won his pro card at the Arnold Classic Australia. When was that? 2019, the year before COVID happened. Because I was going to compete when COVID happened, but that's when the Arnold Classic Australia was called off, and I was going to compete there in the amateur division and hopefully get my pro card. But unfortunately, that was called off, and that was the best I was ever looking to. So I was like, damn. Actually, it wasn't called off. They still did the amateur, but they only confirmed 3 days prior. And I had, you know, with my family at the time, I had $7,000 of flights booked, and they said, you know, if you don't, cancel these flights 5 days before, you won't get a credit. So I'm like, well, I can't sacrifice $7,000 worth of flights for my family. I was just like, don't worry about it. I was like, did a whole prep, and I was like, pulled out 5 days out. So I was like, damn. Then the comp actually did end up happening, but I couldn't, you know, sacrifice the flights, and the comp doesn't happen. And I'm like, $7,000 down plus, you know, not for me. Really. That would be rough. So, so hopefully I'm able to get back on stage next year, man. Like, I would love to be able to do that maybe end of next year or something. But honestly, like my main priority and concern is my family. And I feel like if I didn't prioritize them first, then it'd just be very selfish of me.
Of course, but you have to.
I think that, you know, I do have opportunities and stuff, and I would love to be able to turn pro and then travel to America eventually, you know, when all this stuff sort of hopefully calms down a little bit and travel's opened up a bit more, because, you know, I've got, you know, I've had huge names reach out to me and talk to me, or I've reached out to them and had conversations where, you know, like Jay Cutler, when I interviewed him, he said, oh, you have to come to Vegas. He's like, we'll hang out, we'll go train. He's like, you can come interview me at my house and all that sort of stuff. Like, that is literally, like, he's my idol. Like, he's been my favorite bodybuilder. You know, he's my favorite bodybuilder of all time. So I was like, that would be a dream come true. You know what I mean? So I'm like, I got that opportunity. Flex Lewis said, you know, when me and my mate Aaron Pilates, who lives in Queensland, Australia, he came ninth at the 212 Olympia right before COVID happened, but he hasn't been able to compete since, obviously, being in Australia. And he said, when you and Aaron, you know, sort out when you're coming over, he's like, you guys are my guests, come to the Dragon Lair and all that sort of stuff. I was like, wow, that's cool. Like, Flex Lewis,
that is fantastic, man. That's great.
Yeah. And he's such a nice guy, man. He's so down to earth and so humble. And, you know, we've had conversations about our kids and stuff like that just on Instagram. I'm like, wow, that's cool. And he actually came to Perth once as well. And he chatted to me, man, like, it was like 12:15 at night, and he came in for a workout after doing his store appearances all day. He chatted to me for like 15 minutes in there, and then trained and all that sort of stuff. Had photos of everyone that was in there to come see him and stuff. I'm like, you know, him, like guys like Flex and Jay and all that sort of stuff, they're the guys that we need to like praise and I suppose really hold up on a pedestal, because it's such a level of success, but they are more humble than the average bodybuilder.
Yes.
So I'm like, that's what we need in our sport, man, because there are a lot of guys, you know, like, I don't always mention it, but there are some guys that straight up arseholes, you know?
Yeah,
like,
that was my next question. That was my next question. I was gonna ask you. Yeah, there are some guys that are great, like a Jay Cutler, or for me, Jose Raymond was great. Paul Lazan, you know, Samson Dowder. But then there were times where I've interviewed a couple of people and like, this guy's a dick. You know, that was my next question.
It's unfortunate, man.
It is. I mean, listen, it is. It's just, it is what it is. There's all different types of people. You just got to learn how to deal with it, especially when you're doing things like we do, you know, and especially when you do what you do at your level, you're going to run into these kind of people. I mean, you said Jay Cutler was your favorite bodybuilder of all time. I mean, when I was in high school, because I'm a lot older than you, when I was in high school, and I'm never going to lie and not say it, but my favorite bodybuilder was Sean Ray. But all I had to go on was, you know, magazine pictures, you know, nobody knew what it was like, you know, but you know, listen, I can't lie about it. That's it. He was my favorite growing up. But anyway,
man, his physique was one of my favorites.
It was
as well. Honestly,
insane. I mean, to come in second at next to a Dorian Yates at 220, maybe 215 pounds. I mean, that's really saying something, you know. Yeah, that's amazing. The only person that I see that has surpassed that so far was, I mean, Sean Clarita. I mean, he was 175 pounds on stage, and he beat a pretty good Sergio Oliva Jr., which was 100 pounds more than him. That was, we go to the same gym together, actually. Not together, but we go to the same gym. And
Sean Clarita?
Yeah, because he's from.
Oh, cool.
He lives 5 minutes from me, and I had said to him, I was like, listen, I'm not blowing smoke up your ass. You realize that you changed the game now. Like, you realize that you're in the conversation now for one of the best bodybuilders ever overall. Nobody's done what you did. I mean, like I said, you could say Sean Ray, you could say Lee Priest. Nobody's done what you did. Nobody weighed 100 pounds less than a competition and beat them. That's never been done. Yeah.
It's going to be one of those things, I think, that's talked about more when his career's done.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, absolutely.
It'll be one of those things where people go, Sean Clarita, he's 175 pounds and he beat these guys. You know, it's going to be, I mean, we're talking about it now, obviously, but I think down the track, it will always be talked about, and he'll always be, you know, you think about NBA as well. You look at guys like Spud Webb, obviously, you know, super short guy that won the dunk contest.
Right.
There's guys that are way better than him then in the NBA that will never get talked about as much as Spud Webb, because he had that, obviously, you know, against all odds, you know, a shorter guy doing it, you know. So
absolutely.
It's one of those things, I think, that you sort of will appreciate Sean Clarita more when he's done, I think.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. There are certain athletes that are appreciated a lot more when they retire. And I agree with you. I don't think he gets the just due that he gets. He gets some just due, but I think when he retires, he'll get his just due. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Because I don't see anybody doing that again. I mean, Angel Calderon just did it recently, but it wasn't the level of competition he had wasn't the same as Clarita's. You know?
Yeah.
He didn't have Cedric and Sergio and I forgot the Canadian bodybuilder's name on stage with him, you know?
Regan?
Right, Regan Grimes. Yeah. You're a lot better at this than me.
Oh, man, you cover the comps and it's just like imprinted in your brain.
Yeah. That's the God's honest truth. And like you said, man, Spud Webb, to me, Larry Holmes, like when Larry Holmes was the heavyweight champion, he didn't get much. And now, if you go to a pro fight and he walks in, the whole place gives him a standing ovation, whether it's the Garden, the Madison Square Garden, or wherever, little, you know. So, yeah, it's unfortunate, but some athletes don't get their notoriety until after they retire. But, yeah, that is true. Well, listen, Xavier, I'm going to let you go because I know I don't want to keep you on it way too long, even though you and I could talk about bodybuilding forever. Yeah,
man. You're very, I'm very impressed with your interviewing skills, man, because it's like, I'm not used to being on the other side of the camera, but you've made it incredibly comfortable, like a conversation. I think that's a cool thing about interviewing, when you can make the interview just like a conversation. It feels like this isn't even going to go online. You know what I mean? It feels like we're just chatting. Right. And I sort of have to remind myself a little bit of that, because you don't want to say the wrong, too much of a wrong thing and sort of get yourself in trouble. But yeah, man, I appreciate it, and I appreciate you reaching out to me. And
I appreciate you doing it, dude. Like, I hope in a couple of years I could be as successful as you are right now, and I hope you keep on going and get to the point of maybe like a Nick Strength and Power.
And I'd love to do that, man.
Because even though you want people to. Google's not going to run out of money. If you and I become, if I'm not taking money out of your pocket if I blow up, right? So no, exactly. I don't care if you're my competition.
Man, that's the thing. I think as well in all of this, we need to all support each other, and the channels that want to support each other. I think we need to support each other. I mean, I was just talking to a whole bunch of other people, and I'm really friends with everyone, even though they might have feud with other people, but I'm friends with them. I'm like, it's all good. I don't really get too involved in those sorts of feuds. I'm not going to choose one person over another or whatever, unless one channel did something really messed up.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's important. I mean, I was talking to Leah Longevity. Dave has me on Heavy Muscle Radio every now and then.
That's great. Oh man, that's fantastic.
Yeah,
if you could get
it's cool, man. Like and I normally just message Dave. I'll be in the live chat or something. Like a few times I've just said something in the live chat and he just sends me a link. I'm like, oh, cool, I'll just jump on. But yeah, so I sort of like all these channels, man. Like even unfortunately, Nick Strength and Power blocked me.
Did he really?
Man, he's blocked a lot of people. He blocked Leo Longevity. He's blocked basically all the bigger YouTubers. He blocked Ivan Bodybuilding. I think he's blocked tons of people.
He's actually been pretty cool with me. He's ran one of my interviews on his show, actually.
Yeah, wait till you get too big.
I know, he's been pretty cool, and like sometimes we go back and forth on Instagram, you know. But
Yeah,
you know, everybody's relationship with somebody is different, you know.
Exactly, man. And I would never say something to. I mean, I've had some people where they say, "Oh, you know, that guy's a dick," or whatever, or this person's whatever, and I never let that change my opinion of other people, because you know, if I did that, then I would not like anyone, because everyone has someone that doesn't like them. You know what I mean? It's just the way it is. But yeah, I think it's. I've always liked Nick's content. I've always appreciated the way he's covered it. He hasn't been too biased, I don't think. I mean, maybe in some cases or whatever, but overall, I really looked up to him. Like,
I watch it every morning on the way to work. Yeah. That's what I'm listening to.
I very much looked up to him, and the reason I found out I was blocked is I tried to reach out to him to do an interview. I'm like, oh, he's deleted his Instagram page. And then I realized, I'm like, when I comment under his videos, you know, I put supportive stuff under his videos. I was commenting. I'm like, why does no one ever like my comments? I'm like, that's weird, because normally being a slightly bigger channel, you know, compared to most people that comment, obviously.
Yeah, right.
You know, people normally you get 30 likes, 40 likes, people reply to your stuff. I'm like, that's weird. And I didn't realize you can actually be like, sort of like when people ban you on YouTube, you're sort of shadow banned. So you can comment on their stuff as much as, and you think your comments are going on there, but they're really not. No one else can see them.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So that's what was happening. So I had my my Instagram pages, my personal one, my Desktop Bodybuilding one. I was blocked on there, and it seemed like it's been done to a lot. So I'm not a fan of that, and you know, no reason behind it and stuff like that. So I think we just all need to support each other, man, because like you said, we're not taking money out of each other's pockets. We're taking money out of, you know, Google's pockets.
Yeah, right. So. And Google ain't running out of money, man.
Exactly. And I'm very fortunate now, man. I've had HD Muscle just come on board with me as well. And, you know, there's enough supplement companies out there and lifting companies and gym wear companies and all that sort of stuff for enough channels to have sponsors, you know, outside of the YouTube revenue as well. So I'm very fortunate. HD Muscle was the first company I reached out to because I wanted to get my channel, you know, working a little bit more and going a little bit better before I approached anyone. I talked to Dorian Hamilton, man. I talked to that dude, and he's such a nice guy. And we talked on the phone, and we just got on and vibed really well. And, you know, he said, you know, if we can come to something that's mutually beneficial, then let's do it. And, you know, the reason I approached them is because their products are good and all that sort of stuff. And their slogan is integrity is everything. And that's sort of, I think, in terms of bringing on sponsors, that's what I want to do with my channel. You know what I mean? I'm very fussy in terms of who I bring on. Sure. I wouldn't bring on someone who, you know, sells crap. And that's why, you know, after I was on with Hostile, I waited so long to get another sponsor. I'm like, yeah, I'd love the money. I had people approach me, but I was just like, they might have 2 products. And I'm like, I look at them, I'm like, they're pretty run of the mill. You know what I mean?
Right.
There's no redeeming qualities. I'm like, it's a little bit underdosed here. I'm like, I can't promote it, man. Like, even though it's money in my pocket, I'm like, I can't. So there's enough money to go around for all of us, honestly. Like, you know,
well,
I don't. Some of these channels are getting.
I hope to God I get to that point where I could turn somebody down, because
man, I believe you will. Honestly, like if you keep at it, something, you know, like you're still getting good views anyway. But you know, when you get to a point where you're getting, you know, you tenfold your views or whatever, you'll be laughing, man. Like it's not something where I'm making huge money right now. I'm not making bank, but I'm making enough money right
You're
now.
Making a living.
So, I'm making a living, man. So it's nice, and obviously, you know, you see the potential on YouTube as well, what some of these other channels are doing. I'm like, well, if I got to this level, why can't I double that? Why can't I triple that? Why can't I quadruple that?
Right.
And then once you do that, you're rolling. You know what I mean? So,
yeah, absolutely.
And that's a lot of I suppose, you know, really the views I'm getting, man, are not that much really. And if I'm able to make a living on the views I'm getting now, it's like anyone can do it. You know what I mean? Like, I encourage more people to do it, because the more people that do it, Greg Doucette and More Plates, More Dates have talked about this. Man, More Plates, More Dates was Derek from More Plates, More Dates was just on Joe Rogan. Like, that is huge. Like, that sort of reach is insane. And I'm like, good on him, man. Like, credit to him. And I'm like, you know, I think the important thing is when you see other people doing what you sort of like to do, the important thing is to clap for them. You know what I mean? Not to go, well, fuck that guy. Why is he on Joe Rogan and I'm not? You know, it's obviously not me. I'm not thinking about that. But Greg Doucette could think like that. And Greg Doucette, I think, did a video, you know, basically talking about him being on there and saying congratulations. And I think that's why you normally notice the most successful people, they'll sort of clap for other people that are doing well, rather than go, fuck that guy. Why does he get that? They go, or they're motivated by it. Or they go, oh, he got on Joe Rogan? He's like, oh, maybe I can do that. Maybe I can, you know, grow in some other sort of way and whatever. So I think it's important that we all support each other and we all grow together, because, you know, I've got good relationships with most of the channels out there, and I like that, man. Like, I like being able to use these other channels as motivation and see what they're doing and go, oh, could I incorporate maybe something like that in my channel to make my content better or whatever. I don't think it's one of those things, man, where I you know, you do see other channels and they're killing it and you go, damn, they're doing well. But I always have to check myself and go, good for them. You know what I mean? Like, good for them. Like, I want to, okay, well, they're doing that. That's motivation for me. And it's something where you have to check yourself and stuff. But, man, you're doing an awesome job. You're being consistent with it. And you know, if you fall off and you don't put out videos, you know what happens to your YouTube channel.
It disappears. It's gone. Listen, man, I appreciate the kind words, and from your mouth to God's ears, because originally it was just having fun with it, but now I'm like, okay, well, I could make this happen. This could happen, right? And now I'm like, okay, now I want a solid second income coming in on top of my own career, and that's the goal for me right now, is just to get some money rolling in, and that would be fantastic. And I really appreciate you coming on. I really appreciate your kind words and your support, and much love to you, man. Much love, much respect, and much continued success for you.
Man, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
No problem, man. We'll definitely do this again.
Yeah. Thank you so much, man. Talk soon.